All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks, wherever you are across the globe. Thank you so much for joining us. This is welcome to our first webinar in our series of mobile testing best practices. Right. We have a very interesting agenda up for you. And I kind of look forward to delving into mobile testing strategies today with me. I have here Ayan. So before I hand it off to Ayan, I'll just quickly introduce myself. I started off my journey as a software developer as well. I've been in the industry for 15 plus years. The last 3 years have been at BrowserStack, and now I help manage BrowserStack's test infrastructure. Uh, right. Ayan, with that, I'll just hand it over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. Hello, everyone. I'm Ayan. I'm engineering manager at Ivy Comtech. I have 16 plus years of experience in software development and test automation. And thank you, BrowserStack, for having me.
Perfect. Thank you, Ayan. Before we move on, a couple of housekeeping items for everyone. Right, so today's session will run for roughly 60 minutes. We request all participants to be muted to enable our speakers to present without any interruptions. We will have dedicated Q&A, 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. So please use the Zoom Q&A window to send in your questions. We have a lot of folks here who volunteer to help us man that Q&A. So, they'll be very prompt, and then Ayan and me will be happy to take up any questions at the end as well. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to all the attendees after we complete. The other item I want to cover is that we will have polls during the session to keep the entire session engaged. So please do engage with them, with the polls when they are launched. And I think you should be able to see one right now. Awesome. I'll just quickly move on. The agenda for today, we have a very interesting agenda item for you. Right. We're going to be starting off with the state of mobile testing. We're just going to be talking about mobile testing and what it currently looks like. Then we have a very interesting part where Ayan's going to be delving into mobile testing and beyond at Ivy Comtech. And then we'll be talking about how BrowserStack is helping customers do power their mobile testing. And then we'll kind of get into Q&A. Awesome. Now, let's just get into the state of mobile testing. Now, one of the most interesting things that's been happening, right, and I think everyone knows here, is that mobile adoption has grown. It's grown drastically, right, over the last couple of years, right? It's just some interesting stats here, right? If you notice, our population has increased by about 1% year over year, but mobile subscribers are increasing by 3% roughly year over year, right? So, and this is only going to keep growing, right? As more and more people keep coming online, more and more people, it's a lot easier for folks to get mobile phones and smartphones today, as it is compared to, maybe a couple of years back itself as well. Another interesting stat, right, that when I was looking through this, I noticed is that out of all of the internet users between the ages of 16 to 64, 97% of them own a smartphone today. Right. And that's a huge amount of people who are accessing content and accessing the internet via smartphones, right? Feature phones today at comparison are just about 7%, right? Device fragment. Now, with mobile phones, right, one of the biggest challenges that we see is that there's a lot of device fragmentation around, right? The mobile landscape is highly fragmented. There are obviously everyone knows there are lots of manufacturers and models that are available, and 55% of the market is actually controlled by Samsung and Apple devices. And if you look at just the fragmentation of these devices and the devices that these two manufacturers have launched in the last 3 years, there are over 200 plus device OS combinations just from these two manufacturers. And this is not accounting for tablets. Now, if I take a look at if we combine all the other remaining Android manufacturers, they account for over 1,500 plus device OS combinations. And this is major OS versions and not taking into account minor versions at all. So what this means for us as testers and application developers, right, is that we have to ensure that we build applications where we take into account the wide variety that users have when they choose their kind of devices that they want to access our apps from, right? They have to also take into account screen sizes, resolutions, sensor quality, and a lot of that stuff, right? And we have to ensure that our applications and our websites are supported on the maximum number of mobile devices. But it is not a small investment, right? It takes a huge investment in time, effort, and money. And it's extremely essential, hence, to choose the ideal list of devices that you want to test your mobile apps on. Now, one of the things that's also been happening, right, with mobile devices that are being launched is as the smartphones get smarter and smarter, they're just getting smarter and smarter by way of new sensors being provided, new frameworks, new OS features that are being launched. Now moving on to the software layer. So the simplest solution that a lot of developers have is to solve the fragmentation problem is to do emulator-based testing. But with all of these new smart features that keep getting added and added, the emulators are not able to mimic what a real device would be able to do and the way the real device will interact with your application, right? Emulators are not real mimics for devices, right? They are given the interactions and the functionalities of a modern web or mobile application, right? Emulators are not able to mimic things like SIM card functionality or screen resolution, right? Or low battery or low power scenarios, as well as CPU and memory consumption, right? That's one of the most critical things that apps need to focus on is how is your apps performing under CPU and memory consumptions, right? From when there are other applications or other feature sets running on the app, on the phone. And the other thing also you want to understand and be able to test is how does your app perform when you are leveraging all of these new AR kit or AR core frameworks and features that manufacturers today provide as part of the OSs, right? So it's not a very easy solution, right? And this is only getting harder and harder with the fragmentation of devices that is coming in. Yeah. With that, I'm going to leave you all with this, and maybe move now to Ayan, your side as to how mobile testing has been solved at Ivy Comtech.
Thank you, Anirudh. Hello, everyone. So let me first start off with just telling who is Ivy Comtech, who we are. If Anirudh, if you can go to the next, yeah. So Ivy Comtech, probably not a very well-known company in many areas, but actually we are the largest technology provider for Entain. And what Entain is, it's the world's biggest gaming group. You might not know us from Ivy or Entain, but if you're in Europe, you might heard of our brands Bivin, Coral, Ladbrokes, or if you're in US, BetMGM. So those are some of the brands that we have, and we provide underneath technology. And we do everything in-house. We are a fully invested product company. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Software development, design, architecture, mobile game development, mobile app testing, all of it, even the BI side of it, intelligence, CRM tool, payment system. We build everything in-house. And we always had this culture of building a lot of things in company for our company. So, and apart from that, and we just want to mention that we are based off Hyderabad, and we have been there since 2001. And we have over 4,300 employees just here and growing every day. So if you want to know more, please do go to our LinkedIn page and website. But without spending more time on about the company, let me delve into the use case and how our journey transformed over years with BrowserStack. So let me start a little bit about the history. So our journey with BrowserStack started in 2021. And that time we were launching a lot of our gaming apps in various countries in phased manners. And each of these apps, again, had more than 1,000 plus games, some from in-house, some from vendors. But it was different apps, different geographical location, just a huge scale at which we were doing that. And we knew that we have to do a lot of thorough testing, and we wanted to do testing on real device. Now, the question comes, which some of it Anirudh has already covered, why not emulator, right? Especially if you have a web application, why not just go with emulators? So the emulators can get you at the door. You can see some of the things, how the screen size is looking, and some aspect of it. But if you are not, it's not a simple website, it's a web application with a lot of functionality. Unless a device with all of its aspects, its hardware, its graphics, uh, its software underneath, it is using all three of this to render your web application, you really don't know. And that becomes very important when you have this variations and fragmentation that Andrew just talked about, right? You may have an users with iPhone 11 with iOS 16, but then you decide to go to South America and you find out that there are a lot of Samsung users, some lot of Xiaomi users, a lot of users with older versions of Samsung A series, which doesn't have all the new hardware. So you need to do this combination testing. And that also led us to realize that we need a public cloud solution. So the private cloud solution is you have a dedicated devices, you are just using that through a cloud solution, but really it is your set of 10 devices. While it works out well, the problem is it's still like fixed 10 devices. You decide that I want iPhone 14, Samsung S20, and then just a year after that, you need an iPhone 15 there. So it's still a maintenance overhead. And then again, the same problem. iOS as a new version, you want to have a combination. What do? You do all the math calculation, have this combination. So that was very clear to us that we need a public cloud offering where whenever we go to a different geography and we want a different variation, different combination, we can just get it. But that came with its own challenges because we also needed a partner that can not only provide the devices, that also provided the software layer on top of the devices to do aspects. One of the most common problems we face in our industry is regulatory requirements. We have regulatory requirements like the location app checks the location not only by devices, but also with IP address and a lot of other factors. So the software that we are using to access these cloud devices needed us to give this ability so we can meet these regulatory requirements and do our testing on real device. So all these combinations ultimately led us to BrowserStack because at least back in 2021, most of the offerings from other vendors were private first and a small set of public, but we were looking for public first solution. And we ultimately found a good partner in BrowserStack. Now, this one led to immediate solution for our use case. We did a lot of testing. We were able to scale up very quickly in automation. And that led to the 2022 expansion, where a lot of our other teams, as I said, we have 4,300 plus people. There are a lot of other teams who started also seeing the benefit. They said, we also want a way for us to share devices. Please, we know that that was also the time that, or still the time that work from home was very prevalent and almost mandatory at that point of time. So we needed a way to share devices and do manual testing. So 2021 focus was more automation. 2022 led to more manual testing aspect. And after not only IT teams, but even the teams like marketing, product, they started coming in for a request for cloud devices. I said like many of them used to test in emulators. A simple thing of how a promotion banner is getting displayed on a device. And they were complaining that even though it worked fine on a Chrome emulator, we got complaint once it went to production. So they wanted to be 100% sure that that worked. And that led to many other teams started using this. But with more people coming in comes more problems. So 2023, we uh, came up with a lot of use cases that are not solved out of box. And Not only BrowserStack, pretty much any cloud solution, because the landscape is changing. New biometric is coming in. Apple Pay was becoming more popular. There were a lot of special tab features that was coming in, and that required a problem solving on both sides. It was not a one-way street. We had to do few things on our side. BrowserStack partner, they had to do something on their side, and together we solved many of them. Another interesting thing, as our mobile testing journey got matured, while we are still going towards a public cloud solution, we realize that there are a smaller set of use cases that require dedicated device, whether it is because you wanted to have the content or data of your devices stored permanently, or you wanted App Store to download your app, like and test this end-to-end journey of App Store download. There are a few use cases. That's where we modified our strategy a little bit. We still wanted public cloud first strategy, but with a small set of private. So we went to a more hybrid solution. And in 2024, we are continuing the partnership and looking into all other aspects now. More users, we wanted to get more network bandwidth. There are many other edge cases that we are looking into. And that's how our journey is evolving year on year. But if you see all of this, somehow in more or less fashion, all of them are ultimately a mobile testing family. There's different use cases, but there comes in mobile testing. But I want to run you through a use case which typically doesn't fall into mobile testing, but we found a way to solve it with building some solution our side and using BrowserStack's hardware and software offerings. So, Anirudh, if we can go to the next one. Yeah. So we ultimately have a B2C offering. And for any company that has a B2C offering, the critical part is customer acquisition. So it's become a golden standard for most of the B2C company for us to be able to map how a website is performing. Website performance is a key factor, but what does that really mean? While there are many, many factors, I broadly broke it down into three aspects. One is the core web vitals, CWV monitoring. Core web vitals, for anyone if they're unfamiliar, those are the web performance metrics that get tracked and that impacts your search engine optimization rankings a lot. Like Google will rank you higher if your CWP aspects are higher. And there are many, many CWP aspects. So yeah, feel free to look at it online. So that is one aspect that tells technically the search engine and other application whether your application is fast or not. However, that is the technical speed, and then there is the perceived speed. You may many times have heard, if you're in B2C world, that a customer feel that your application is not fast enough. Now, what does that feel? The feel is just they're looking at it and they feel like the website is not loading fast enough. And that was the second part which we also wanted to track. And that's a very difficult thing to automate, because it's how do you automate someone's feeling? But yeah, we did some of it and I will cover it in the next slide. And finally, the hardware impact of it. While the hardware and memory impacts may not matter much if you have a very small marketing website or a small application. But once it start becoming heavier and bigger, especially a gaming application, hardware becomes very, very critical. And it becomes very critical if you're trying to go global and you want to serve customers who probably don't have iPhone, but you still want to serve them. So these three factors are critical. And let me just explain how we covered it and how we solved this tracking problem. Over to the next one. Now, the core web vitals, so that is ultimately the factors that mainly impacts your SEO ranking. And it is there are a lot of tools to track it. Anyone who's familiar may ask, like, you already have like hundreds of free tools to monitor it. True, but very few or almost none of them provides you the ability to do a drill down. One is we had tools that was monitoring this at a scale. So it was telling us that, okay, your seed WP factor of LCP is suddenly going high in the Europe region around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And that is good information. But then as a developer, I want to know what's happening during that time, what's happening at that device. And it's very, and most of the vendors don't provide that. There are some logs, but if I really want to see the network logs, application logs, all of it, I cannot. And this was a problem posed to us, and we said, like, how do we solve it? And we looked around and we said, you know what, we have the test automation built, which is going through the website loading. We can just extend it to track our core web vitals on BrowserStack. That will give us a variety of devices. And then it also gives the ability to record the entire journey, the video of it, the network logs, the application logs, all of it. I can go back and check what's going on. It is a single thread. But I have a full detail of that thread. And that's what we started doing. We took our automation, we extended it. We started posting that data into our own servers. We built some of the Grafana dashboards. And we also, using BrowserStack's API, took the reporting URL separately. So if you see there, you see the different trends. But the ability was, if we see a spike, for example, the first left top graph, you see there was a spike. I wanted to know what's going on. And what we did, because we also had the recording of all those journeys below, as you can see the BrowserStack reporting link at the bottom, we can go to that timestamp, go to that recording and see what was going on. What was my network server slow? Was my application not loading properly? And this gave us more insights into how to solve it technically. So that was problem one. Now let's take an example of that. This is more LCP tracking. What LCP means in a nutshell is largest contentful paint. It just means on a very crude level, how much time it's taking for your largest component to load. And that could be your login image or something else. It's a very important factor, but we will see this complaint that even if your LCP or the other factors are doing great, and it's not doing great in your competitor's website, you get a feedback from your customer that your competitor website is better. That is where the perceived speed comes into picture. Because as I said, LCP is the largest contentful paint, but that means if the user is not looking for that image, even if it is your largest contentful paint and it's loading slow, is fine. But if it is your most important image that the user wants to look at, he will feel it slow. So this kind of different permutation combination is there. That is where we move to our second problem statement, which is the next one, the user journey monitoring. And like, how do we track how a user feels that web components are loaded? Like it's almost impossible to solve with 100% because it's a feeling. But what we said was, okay, let's break it down into the visual cues. We want to see if an application is loaded, visually, when does the visual element is visible to a customer? And we looked at multiple tools again. We couldn't find anything that was doing this exact thing. And we said, same, let's look back to what we have. We have automation, we have a video recording, we have ability to take screenshots. So we repurposed that. We fed it into some of the OCR and visual recognition tools. And we mapped out a journey saying that at this second, the user feel that the application components are loaded. At this second, user is able to start looking at the application. And that's how we are able to map out that how our different websites are visually looking over time. And we do that over and over and over. And it helps understand that, okay, if a release is breaking this flow, or if the time to complete a journey is taking longer. how to make it better. So this is the second part of it, which is the perceived speed of it. So technical speed, perceived speed, and not and but the most important factor is the hardware aspect of it. How do we track that? So luckily for us, BrowserStack already provided this ability. They provide this out of box to be able to track the hardware aspects of it. So now we know when the journey is going on, how the technical core web vitals are happening, how the user journey is being perceived, and how the hardware is behaving when the application is getting loaded. So this is pretty much all the things that I wanted to cover. And if we leave you with this, what we learned is that BrowserStack by itself is providing a lot of capability, but it also is providing the software and APIs and all those beautiful dashboards to do more. And we just looked at it, we leveraged this and do more problem solving than just mobile testing. That's where our Beyond came into picture. So with that, I will end my session and over to Anurag.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ayan. I think I really love the user journey mapping that you've used, and you've done that, right? I think it's a very unique way of mapping or using the tool and kind of trying to understand how users are actually interacting with the app itself, right? So that was, I think, the most interesting part for me for sure. Right. With that, I'd like to just take a couple of more minutes from everyone and maybe just delve a little bit more into what are the other aspects that BrowserStack is providing and how you all can use, you can improve your mobile testing, powered by BrowserStack, right? So before we get there, right, I want to kind of just take a couple of minutes and walk you all through what is the right testing platform. I think Ayan mentioned this at the start of his segment, right? And if you think about it, there are four options that people generally have. You have public clouds, right? BrowserStack is one of those providers, wherein it's a shared pool of secure devices for testing, right? You have then another iteration on that is private clouds, where there are a small number of users, small number of devices that are available exclusively for a single customer. You do compromise on fragmentation here, but these devices are then only allocated to you, and it does open up a couple of more options for doing some kind of testing, like Ayan alluded to earlier. Maybe when you want to keep the state of the device across your different test cases, and then you have another kind of combination of this, which is on-premise grids. So similar to this, on-premise grids are kind of similar to private clouds, where the devices are exclusively for the customer, but the devices as well as the platform are all hosted within the customer's premises. So these are basically custom-built grids that you'll have to host and manage on your own premises. And then we have hybrid solutions. Hybrid solutions are where customers generally deploy a combination of the above three, right? So customers, like I mentioned, Ivy Comtech does public clouds and private clouds. There are some customers I know who also can be doing like public clouds and on-premise grids as well, right? And this gives them a unique combination of kind of capabilities that they can leverage for doing their testing. So you have to essentially just choose a platform and choose a solution that best suits your needs. And that, I think, is the most important thing here. Right? Now, with that, how do you make a decision? How do you make a decision when choosing a testing solution? Right? There are essentially, when we looked at this, right, there are 5 key parameters if you think about it, right? And you need to have a solution, and any solution that you choose is going to have different advantages and different sets of disadvantages. And as a tester, as a developer, it is important for us to decide what are the parameters that are critical for us. What is it that we are trying to optimize, right? Any solution that you choose, any provider that you choose, right? Any public provider or private provider that you choose should be able to provide you a solution that maximizes for device coverage, scalability, security, platform features, right? Platform features, things like I mentioned around providing functionalities like APIs for gathering your data, providing you with video logs, with session logs, providing you with essentially what has happened if a test has failed, and be able to help you debug those scenarios and best get to the root cause of the problem faster. And the platform should then also be able to help you minimize for cost and maintenance. Right? And then from these parameters, essentially, it is important for you to choose which ones are critical for you and which ones you want to optimize for. Now, once you've chosen a platform, right, the other things that are critical is, okay, what are the kind of workflows, right, in mobile testing? What are the key workflows that I want to test? What are the key workflows for my application, right? And what we did was we spoke to a lot of developers and QA practitioners, and we started sifting through product feedback from our users. And we understood there are, if you think about it, we've kind of bucketized these use cases in like these 6 buckets of use cases, right? Media injection and audio streaming are essentially critical for applications from the BFSI, travel, media, and pharma industries, wherein they want to be able to inject either videos, audios, or images into their applications while testing on the cloud to be able to test these scenarios out, right? They want to be able to maybe upload and download files. They want to be able to stream audio. And these are all use cases, if you think about it, that are critical for like media and BFSI especially. Right? Then you have apps that like the retail, the media, and all some of the BFSI industries use for payment and security workflows. We are all familiar with using our mobile phones for making payments, right? Using our mobile phones for two-factor authentication, and having our logins and authentication information linked to physical SIMs. So at times, you need a physical SIM available to be able to do your testing of your application and different critical scenarios, right? Now, as more and more users start using applications, pretty much all applications need to be tested with one or more accessibility functionalities, right? You need to be able to know how your app is performing in the dark mode. How does your application interact with any kind of assistive touch functionalities or any multi-finger gestures that you provide? This is critical for gaming companies, but also for a lot of other companies that are, have consumer-facing apps, right? Location and device settings, I think this was one of the first set of kind of functionalities that was launched when the smartphone came about. Apps like Uber, Discovery, they had localization testing, which was very, very critical for them because there were different content that was provided for different locales, as well as like the likes of Uber and any other taxi companies wanted to kind of provide you with GPS based testing and stuff as well, right? And then obviously you want to do IP geolocation testing to understand how your app is doing within the different regions and the different geolocations. Now, once we kind of cover that, pretty much all consumer applications, right? If you are not already doing this, I'm sure you would start doing this, is you want to be able to test your apps in low resource conditions. Are your apps being able to provide the services that you should be providing through the apps via, in low resource conditions, like when battery is low, when networks are low, or when the phone is actually offline, right? Is your download section working for media apps? Is content available for folks to read offline, right? And these functionalities are very, very critical for apps, as more and more people that we saw at the start are moving towards smartphone usage, right? It's almost, I think, 70% of the world population today is on a mobile phone, right? That's a huge number. If you think about it, that's a huge number of people who are looking to consume mobile and web applications today, right? With that, just going to go on to the next slide. Now, what is the BrowserStack Real Device Cloud, and like how do we help our users power their mobile testing, right? We have one of the largest infrastructures of real mobile devices, I think, globally, right? We have over 20,000 odd devices that are available for people to use, and this is across 3,000 device OS combinations. If you take into account tablets and minor versions and all of that, right? You can test 3,000 odd device OS combinations, and we keep adding more and more. Whenever you are looking at the cloud, whenever you're doing testing on the cloud, it is extremely critical for you to reduce your latencies, because the cloud is pretty much everywhere, right? And so if you are sitting in India and you get a device that is allocated in the US, or if you're sitting in the US and you get a device that is allocated in Asia, your latency is going to be very, very high, right? Solving for this, honestly, simply is just by ensuring that we're able to give you a device that is closest to you physically. And we've done this by having 19 data centers across 13 locations globally, right? And this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that people face. And we've kind of, been able to solve it by just scaling it up to be able to provide you with a device that is closest to you. One of the things that we started doing recently, right, is we are fastest to meet market releases with what we call internally as day zero launches. I think in the past 2 months itself, we've done 4 day zero launches. We launched iOS 17 and Android 14 on the day it was made GA. iPhone 15 and the Google Pixel family, the Google Pixel 8 family, was also released on the day that it was released to the public and available for retail stores. Right. So these are all extremely, I think, proud moments for us as a platform, as a provider, because we take customer testing and customer use cases very seriously. And so we want to ensure that we're able to provide you with the best services and you're able to meet your mobile testing requirements with a lot of ease. Yep. With that, I think we're just going to go into Q&A now. So we're ready to take some questions. I know there's lots of questions that have come in. So, and I'm just going to start picking and choosing here, right? And maybe hand some over to you.
Yeah.
So I think the first one, I would like to get your perspectives on this, Ayan, is how do you do security testing of mobile apps at Ivy Comtech?
So here's the thing, I'm trying to understand the question more in thing, because BrowserStack by itself, right? We ultimately are doing security testing more at an API layer initially, whether the APIs are exposed or not, whether all the network is secure or not. Mobile app by itself is considered pretty secure because it's packaged application on the device. You cannot really break it down. But what you can do is where all it is storing the information. Now, some of that, there are two aspects. One is the network aspect. So that really is not a mobile app problem. That's is your app secured? Is your data encrypted? All those aspects you check regardless of mobile app. From mobile app standpoint, where you're storing the data on the local device, is it encrypting? Is it accessible differently? Those all aspects do need, if you really want to automate that aspect, it really would require a private device. I don't see that happening in public thing. Frankly speaking, we don't use BrowserStack for those aspects. We test that in some of our physical devices. But yeah, those are the different aspects in which we'll look at. I'm hoping that's the question is, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that kind of answers that question, right? I'll take the next one, right? How can we cover SDK testing with BrowserStacks, right? A use case is around app purchases, which we provide with SDKs. Would be great if you could cover this. Sure, Kedar, I can take that question, right? So we have customers who do SDK testing, right, on BrowserStack devices as well. And honestly, I think, when talking to those customers, the way that they do this testing is they write a sample application and they test all of the workflows of the sample application on BrowserStack. So your SDK, it does expose some integration points for applications, right? And there is a certain way that you expect your users, your consumers of your SDK to be integrated. And if you have a sample application that does essentially that, you could test that sample application on BrowserStack, and that's how you would be able to cover your SDK testing on BrowserStack as well. There's a question from Rithiana. Could you suggest an open source tool for performance testing Android app? I would want to share this question with you, but I think given that you spoke about client-side performance testing, right? Before BrowserStack did provide this client-side performance testing, right? How were you doing performance testing at Ivy Comtech?
Yeah. So I will go in a tangent and say that client-side performance testing means scaling at a client level is usually not needed unless you have very, very specific use cases. Like most of the, so two aspects. One is performance testing versus load testing. If you're just looking for performance testing means how your app is behaving across different devices of Android, and especially a low-end Android device, that falls into some of the other aspects we are talking about, like monitor the network logs, monitor the user journey. But if we're talking about load testing itself, that you want to see that if 10,000 users logs in into my application, how is my app behaving? That is a little bit different, because to really, really do that, you have to get 10,000 devices, whether it's BrowserStack or physical. It's insanely costly and probably not that effective. So the way to go about it, and usually what we do, is we load the backend. We do the API testing at backend. Ultimately, you load your backend application with using JMeter or any of a similar open source solution. JMeter is usually what we use. And then you have few of your either manual tester or automated scripts to check during the same time how it is behaving from a mobile device on an Android device or an iOS device. And then that tells you how the app is behaving when the system is really in load. So you are able to achieve a load testing like without the need for hosting 10,000 plus devices.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, right? I just to add one of the things there, right? Like uh, there was a customer we were talking to, and I think they had a very similar use case as to how you were mapping out user journeys, right? How you're doing perception testing. And I think that is also another way of, if you think about client-side performance testing, right? Client-side performance testing is about how your clients are perceiving the performance of your app. How are you able to move from one screen to the next in your user flows? So I think the question was from Kedar. Kedar, one of the things I think you'd want to maybe do in terms of client-side testing is also be able to look at how much time is it taking for the transitions between your screens, right? And that can also be a way that you do performance testing, right, for your applications. Um, the next one is from Sudhakar. How to automate testing of the apps that are video conferencing classrooms like Zoom, especially the video and audio part. So we have at BrowserStack, right, released about 30 odd some native device features. And these are features that allow users to test the sensors on the actual mobile device by injecting media streams into the application. So you can actually do audio and video testing on the cloud by injecting custom videos or custom audio streams into your application. And this would, basically what we would do is we would inject this into your application as if it is coming from the sensor. And then you would be able to test your application's interactions with the OS APIs that will be actually interacting with the the audio and video sensors.
And if I may add a little bit into it, like uh, on a very broad level, problem like this are becoming more apparent, which are very much to do with like a visual aspect or the user aspect of it. And those are almost impossible to automate, frankly speaking, because you can never really recreate how a user is behaving. But as a computer scientist, we can break it down into ones and zeros. So if you really want a video quality stream, ultimately, even if it's a cloud hosted application, you have network logs, you have video quality checks, all those are available in a way that you can do a lot of that upfront without doing the final part. And then if the final pieces, there are tools available, BrowserStack, as Andrew mentioned, have some, or like there are some third-party application that can be integrated. There are ways to do the video quality check and everything, but that is like you're trying to recreate a load testing by doing a user journey. So you're, which is the ideal way, but very difficult and very costly. I will answer, I think, the next question also, that my recommendation always when you do load testing, don't look at it as 10,000 users loading in. Rather, look at it as 10,000 connection being made to your server, what that means, and map out your pattern. Same go with socket testing. We have some of socket testing, load testing on our side. We don't load 10,000 BrowserStack devices, but we do 10,000 socket connections, do the ping pong, keep it going, using JMeter or one of other tools, and simultaneously run a lower set of uh, automated tests to see how the web application is looking on a mobile device. Yes, there's some network lag and everything, but if that is your baseline, it balances it out. So that is the idea.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much for jumping in there. I think that's a great. The next one is any use cases created using AI ML on mobile testing. And do you want to take a stab at that one? Doing it,
Not directly through browsers. Again, like not something inherently built with BrowserStack, but we have a use cases. Mobile testing, the most, I think there are a lot of fancy AI ML things being talked about. As very practical software developers, so don't pay heed to lot of it. But there are a few really good use cases which I found. Some of them are around object detection. That is, I think, very critical. So we did do some of that where we couldn't, if your application is behind an iframe or in a way that you really cannot access that application, or it is within a video element where you really don't have object detection per se. So while it doesn't, BrowserStack doesn't provide an AI ML capability itself, it does provide you video audio recording. That means you can do that at a scale and get your sample using which you can then build an AI model on top of it. And you can use that for your object detection wherever it's failing, because object by image or object by coordinates are usually, or using SQL or something, is not very consistent. So that is one of the use cases we did where we had issues. We use BrowserStack as a platform to train our model, and then it is going to model, identify the images or objects on BrowserStack web, and then doing the automation.
Got it. No, that's great. I'm going to make a shameless sales plug here, right? There is a lot of work that is happening internally at BrowserStack around AI ML. So keep tuned to our, kind of normal communication channels. I think something is in the works and it should be made public very, very soon. Sweet. With that, I'm going to go on to the next question. In case of using files from phone or scan QR codes which lacks a camera, how can we handle this scenario? So Siva, image injection is a functionality that we have released, and it's quite mature now, wherein we are helping customers with injecting either images for scanning purposes, like passport images or documents, anything of that sort that people need to do, or even for injecting QR codes, right? And you can use this. Basically, what we do is, we take the image from you, you upload the image onto our platform, and then when you want the image available in your app, we then inject it into your app at that point in time, right? Ayan, I'll give you the next one. I think this is going to be directly up your alley. Is how can we implement the concept of test isolation in automated testing for many mobile apps, where Unlike websites, we often need to go through a login or follow a specific journey to reach a particular component instead of directly accessing a specific URL, as is the case with website automation tests.
Yeah, short answer, you can't. I will be very frank because that even if you find a loophole, I'm pretty sure Apple will close it. We had lot and lot of things. As a consumer of Apple, I'm very happy that it's secured. But as someone building the apps, it's painful. They keep closing all the loopholes that you can do. I think we saw some of the questions below that why it works on Android and not on iOS. That's the answer. Apple just keeps blocking it. So anything you try to do which breaks the journey or nature of our application, it will be a problem. Having said this, we have done some of it, but it is not the production app. So we have obviously a test build app on which we have some custom features built to go to a specific place, which is giving you test iteration, but that is basically your production app with some customization used for your local, but that app will never be approved for App Store. So it is we are able to do that, but yeah, that's not going to production app, but we get our isolation testing some of it. Similarly, there are some other custom solutions which we can again, like ultimately you can do a local testing which then redirect your entire BrowserStack traffic to your local, and you can, because now the API calls in your local setup, you can customize some of the responses to go to a specific screen directly. So you can do some of this customization, but that would need a custom app, which I highly doubt will get approved for a production app. So
Awesome. Can UX be tested for the shape size of the user's finger? Ooh, that's an interesting one. Uh, have you done anything of this sort, Ayan?
yeah, you guys have Percy. So I think he's talking about Percy. I'm not sure if the user's finger part of it,
Yeah, so
but
yeah,
the shape and size, yeah, UX testing is available, but
that is Percy, right? For sure. That is visual regression testing. Um, I think what the user is trying to maybe get at is to test for users who have fat fingers, right? Or the fat finger syndrome where people are not able to touch at the right places and time. Um, so if you think about it, it's an accessibility problem, Dominic, right? And we do provide ways for users to increase and decrease the zoom that is available on the devices. And that would be one of the ways that you would want to test your user experience with, because when people are generally like, I see this a lot with, certain folks who are not very familiar with smartphones, who have not, been through the smartphone kind of journey, been feature phone users, and have then moved on to smartphones, right? Uh, with them using the ability to increase and decrease the font sizes, I think is a very useful way to do that. Sorry, give me 1 second. How do you hide your API from getting exposed? I think this is one, and I'd like you to take that. This is more of a practitioner question.
yeah, but again, like I'm not sure what it means because ultimately for us, we did need a recording, so that's why we have all the MSA in place, all the agreement in place, because the API logs will be, I'm assuming he's talking about the API logs in the report. That's what I'm assuming the question is. But
Mhm.
when you're loading your application, you can put some hacks to not show, but that is not meant to be. We are meaning to test that application, and we have a corporate enterprise level agreement that this data is secured there. So it's
How,
SOC compliant and everything. So we actually have not intended to hide API on our site because we rather focused on the legal aspects that it cannot be misused.
how do you hide your API in your production apps? Do you do any kind of API hiding in your production apps?
No, not really like we do have layers. Like, let me put it this way: if there is more software development question, we what the users see the API is not the actual underneath API. It is just a wrapper API, and underneath then it goes to multiple gateways and hops to then actually get to that where the server and actual serving API is. That is how architecture is done. But I think this more browser stack question, which I said like that wrapper API is available, but yeah,
Hmm,
using the wrapper API, you cannot get to the app server because that's how architecturally it's built, the software is developed.
got it. Okay. Can Selenium widely used automation too?
But I think there are a couple of questions on the top that we skipped.
Yeah. Easy hacks in case of automation execution done using BrowserStack.
Reporting, I think.
Yeah, I think this is more of a reporting. Namita, yeah, I would request you, reach out to our support team and maybe give us some more information. Would love, I think the support team would love to kind of get more information around that. We
Are
have,
you
yeah, sorry.
on this one something though? We did build a custom reporting on we browser stack reporting is great. So I'm not doing it, but we have built a separate one, and that's where goes to a broader point that ultimately I'm assuming you're connecting through a Selenium or Playwright or Cypress or any of them, and they all have reporting. Browser stack ultimately is your driver, and it has a lot of reporting and dashboard built in, but it also has a way to export that reporting out if we want to. I think we ran into issue where we are running different builds, but we wanted all builds to be grouped together and see it in one place. So, which is not something inherently provided, so that we are able to export the data because it's done automatically with APIs. So we did that to build our own custom report. So, but yeah, and it said, please reach out. But if something needed, there are mechanisms to export the report and then build your own.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. As in we have, like you mentioned, we have a bunch of APIs that a lot of customers like yourself use to build your own custom reporting needs, right? And it kind of just meets all of your needs. Um, I'm going to skip a couple here, Ayan, and see if you can get a couple of more interesting ones in. Folks, if I'm not able to answer all of these questions, if you're not able to answer them, we'll definitely, answer them over email or an alternate solution. What are the best practices we need to follow while testing the mobile app? I think that's a great way to maybe take that as a last question, Ayan, given that we are also at the top of the hour. Do you want to take a stab at that first?
Sure. I think the most important, I would say, first is having a test strategy of variation. Like, and before even starting on your like what to test, where to test, you need to do some kind of groundwork on which devices to be automated. And don't just pick like the best 10 top 10 devices from Google. If you have a customer base, the best way would be to look at the production logs to see who are your top customers and which device are they using. So regardless, we'll never be able to do 100% devices. And then do a variation of low-end and high-end devices. So you cover both flavors of it. Uh, then obviously, after that, it depends on your variation. If the features that are important, visual, the landscape feature, break down all the features, but certainly test for different network variation, different hardware aspects of it. So I'd say like your functionality testing and a lot of it, if it's a responsive application, we'll cover in desktop also, but with mobile, focus foremost on devices to be more tested, the features to be tested, different hardware aspects, and yet then the list goes on and goes on. But I say like those are more important mobile specific one, and then you can go into your functionality specific testing.
Yeah, great. Awesome. I know we're at the top of the hour. We've missed a couple of questions, folks. I'm so sorry for that. I don't think we have more time, but we'll try and answer these questions asynchronously if at all possible, right? But thank you so much